Today, we'll be discussing the case of Lucy Wieland. Lucy was an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, and a beauty therapist. She was unfortunately diagnosed with a very aggressive type of cancer and was told that she only had 6 months left to live. Though, despite it all, she continued living her life. She was still able to cook, she was able to clean, she was able to continue doing her daily activities. And more notably, she bravely documented her story, sharing the things she was going through via her own blog and on her social media. People were so inspired to see a woman facing numerous health challenges radiate such optimism and courage despite her difficult circumstances. So much so, she ended up raising over $72,000 in funds towards her medical expenses in just a few months, and the support kept on raining in from various different avenues. The wild thing is, this support actually didn't last that long. It lasted all until Lucy made one crucial mistake that had people turning their heads. And it was after this happened when people began finding out the truth about her diagnosis. Because Lucy didn't have cancer. In fact, she never had cancer. And instead, this fake diagnosis was all part of a scheme that would soon rope in many people. You'll be shocked to discover the reasons many people said she did this in the first place. Because while it may seem that money was the motive, you'll see that there was a much deeper reason she might have kept this lie going, and it unfortunately would end up hurting many people along the way. But before we hop into today's case, just to introduce myself, my name is Petal Palmer, and on this channel I post anything medical, mysteries, and crime. If that is something that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing if you end up liking this video. Alright, let's get into this case. Lucy Victoria Wieland grew up in Miriam Vale in the Gladstone region of Queensland, Australia. Miriam Vale is a small rural town, and in 2016 it had a population of 512 people. And because it was so small, it was a place she was able to easily explore during her childhood. As a child, she would often run around the beaches of Agnes Water, as it was only just a few towns over, and it was absolutely gorgeous to have a nice beach day. In 2008, Lucy received a diploma of beauty therapy in far north Queensland, and with this would be the area she would stay in after school, managing high-end salons and working as a beauty therapist. It was Lucy's dream to settle down with someone and own her own high-end salon, and staying here was the right step for her to be able to do this, because it was a few years later when Lucy's dream finally began to come true. In September 2017, Lucy was finally able to start her own business called Luminance Beauty, and it was doing amazingly. Lucy provided her clients with services like skincare treatments, waxing, eyelash tinting, and the business was going very well. But being 27 at the time, and after working in beauty for 9 years, she was ready to settle down and truly get her life going. Lucy had her dream business, but she was still looking for someone to share her future with. And fortunately for her, this would happen very soon, because it was just 3 months later, around December 2017, when she began seeing a man named Bradley Congerton, who in articles was referred to, and who I will also be referring to as Brad. Brad was a soldier in the 2nd Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment. He was constantly in training as Australia learned and readied their new amphibious technology that the country had spent years developing. Being in the army, Brad unfortunately knew what losing a friend was like, and around this time he was looking truly just for something casual. Because of his past experiences, he wasn't quite ready for commitment. But after meeting Lucy, things quickly changed for him. Brad and Lucy had met through the army because, in addition to working as a beauty therapist, Lucy also worked at the defense bank, and it didn't take long for her to fall head over heels for Brad. For her, it was love at first sight. Brad owned his own place in Townsville, which is a city on the coast in northeastern Queensland, Australia, and he had a roommate named Jamie Campbell. Jamie was actually Brad's cousin, and she had moved in with him a few months prior in August, as Brad had a spare room and she had needed a place to stay after breaking up with her boyfriend. The two cousins had grown up together together, and they remained very close over the years. And Jamie's mom had actually suggested that she ask Brad to stay in the spare room. Brad, in fact, welcomed Jamie in with open arms, laughing that it would be nice to have her help with paying rent. Over the next few months, Lucy began coming over to Brad and Jamie's place more often. And as Lucy began to come over more frequently, Jamie and Lucy also began becoming friends. They were about the same age and they both had similar interests. So being around each other made it very easy for them to become close. Sometimes the two of them would even hang out together even when Brad was busy and wasn't around. And they seemed to share a lot in common with each other. Lucy would tell Jamie about how hard she had fallen for Brad, and she would even describe how Brad had rescued her from an abusive relationship. But with Jamie knowing how Brad had a more casual outlook, she told Lucy, like, hey, I really want you two to work out, but you should obviously keep in mind that Brad may not be wanting to look for something super serious right now. Being close with Brad and becoming friends with Lucy, she wanted to warn her, but obviously hoped the best for the couple. And to everyone's luck, it seemed that all of them had grown very close. Brad and Lucy had stayed together and actually became way closer than anyone had expected. And Jamie and Lucy had also became great friends throughout everything too. They would go out to dinner and hang out and talk, and everyone seemed to get along and just click together. But this was, of course, until unfortunately, Lucy apparently found out some very bad news. One day, Lucy had woken up and she seemed to not be feeling well at all. She had some bleeding, she was feeling very fatigued, and she also had stomach pains. And she had no idea where these symptoms came from and why she was feeling them. She started thinking that maybe she was just tired, maybe it's just stress from starting a new business. She had no idea, but whatever it was that was going on, she was sure that everything would be fine and not too serious. But these symptoms started getting way worse. And so she told Brad and Jamie, like, hey, I'm not feeling good. I don't know why. I'm gonna go see a doctor. And they were like, yeah, like, I think you need to go get checked out. They were concerned and just hoped that everything was fine with her and that they'd be able to figure out what was wrong. So one day in March, Jamie had heard a knock on the door. And when she went to check who was there, she saw Lucy standing outside. Brad wasn't home at the time, but Jamie did answer the door and let Lucy in. Now, as soon as Lucy stepped inside, Jamie couldn't help but notice that Lucy was looking extremely upset and she looked very worried. And so Jamie was like, hey, like, what's wrong? Like, what's going on? And that's when Lucy just blurted out, I've been diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and the doctor said I might not make it. As soon as Lucy said this to Jamie, Jamie was absolutely shocked, and they both just sat there and cried together, scared for what the future might hold. Eventually, Lucy was able to get in touch with Brad, and when she did, she told him about her diagnosis. He was also very devastated about this, and seeing how devastated he was, Lucy had actually offered to break up so he wouldn't have to deal with all of this. They had only been seeing each other for about 3 months, so she told him, like, hey, I completely understand if you don't want to deal with this. I wouldn't want to put you in this position. But Brad didn't feel this way. He did not want to break up. He actually wanted to do anything he could to support his girlfriend. In fact, he wanted quite literally the opposite. He offered to let Lucy move in and was actually now ready to commit to their relationship. Lucy still couldn't believe this all was happening at first. I mean, she still seemed healthy. She was able to cook everyone dinner. She was able to clean the apartment. It didn't make sense to her that she would all of a sudden get this diagnosis. Lucy even said, quote, at first we were pretty hesitant to believe it. We were like, that's so dramatic, it's not going to be that bad. As my health started to deteriorate and other things went wrong and other organs started to shut down, it became a bit more real. Around this time in March, Lucy told everyone that her doctor had estimated that she only had 12 months left to live. Lucy was surprised at this, and she even stated, quote, at the time though, I didn't really realize what ovarian cancer was, like most people. We didn't think it would be this aggressive this quickly. And because of knowing how aggressive it was and that she might not have that much time left, Lucy wanted to be able to share her story in what she thought was the last few months of her life. This is when she started a blog. And it was on this blog where she would share her story of living with cancer, naming the blog No Thanks Ovarian Cancer, trying to make fun of her diagnosis and keeping things lighthearted while putting on a brave face. In addition to this blog, she also constantly posted on her Instagram too, using hashtag No Thanks Ovarian Cancer. Jamie absolutely admired Lucy's bravery. However, Lucy wasn't always able to stay brave and optimistic, especially when she found out that she would likely never be able to have children. Things like this were very devastating for her, and so Lucy turned to the internet to find support online. She ended up joining an ovarian cancer support group, and she was reaching out to others who seemingly were going through what she was going through. She shared her story as openly as she could. She would often post pictures of her treatments and share the struggles and things she was going through. There were photos of Lucy lying on the floor, exhausted from intense fatigue. The blog also showed pictures of her bandages and marks from surgeries. She tried to be as authentic as she could for her followers in everything she had to deal with as a cancer patient. Brad saw Lucy going through all this and he desperately wanted to help. Lucy often spent her days in bed or lying on the couch due to fatigue, and the fatigue was so bad she couldn't work any longer. Lucy had gotten what the court documents quoted as a PICC line in her chest for administering drugs and chemotherapy. The thing I found a bit off about this from researching it and just based on my own personal experiences from having a PICC line is that a PICC line is typically inserted into a vein from your arm, and it's instead rather a central line that is typically inserted into your chest. PICC is an acronym for peripherally inserted central catheter. The reason it's called this is because the veins in your arms are called peripheral veins, meaning they're not in the center part of your body. Peripheral veins include just any veins that aren't in the chest or abdomen, so it includes veins in the arms, hands, legs, and feet. And it is possible to get a PICC line in these areas as well, but it's typically inserted in the arm. The whole point of a PICC line is to insert the catheter into these peripheral veins to then guide it to a central vein toward your heart. It's inserted peripherally and not inserted centrally like a central venous catheter, for example. The court document had the word PICC described with apostrophes and stated that that's what appeared to be in Lucy's chest, covered by bandages and photos posted online. There wasn't too much more information on this, but it makes me think what might have happened is that she might have possibly described what she had in her chest as a PICC line, not knowing that it would have probably been called a central line. Also, just the fact that PICC was spelled with one C instead of two makes me think this as well. But anyway, soon enough, Brad began to notice that Lucy was really struggling because she could barely afford to buy the medicine that she needed. And because of how bad she was struggling, Brad began to take out loans to help pay for her treatment. Brad took out a 12,000 Australian dollar loan to pay for chemotherapy, and later he took out another $5,000 loan to pay for harvesting eggs from Lucy in case she became infertile from the cancer treatments. And with this money, she was able to pay for the treatments she needed to save her life. Lucy began going to her chemotherapy appointments at Townsville Hospital. This was the largest medical facility in their area, so if any place had the resources to help, it would have been them. They had a large cancer department that offered chemotherapy, radiation, bone marrow transplants, and they even had clinical trials of promising new treatment options. Brad would usually drive Lucy to her chemo appointments, but whenever they would pull up, Lucy would tell him, "Hey, I don't want you to come in. I really don't want you to see me like this." And so for these appointments, Brad would drive Lucy. He would sit in his car and wait until she was done, and then he would take her home afterwards. Depending on the exact treatment method, chemotherapy sessions could range from 30 minutes to 10 hours. So there's no saying how long he would have to wait, but regardless, time was being taken out of his day for him to do this. Both Jamie and Brad were able to keep up with Lucy's chemo schedule because she would put her appointment times up on a chalkboard in the kitchen. And Jamie made sure that on those days where Lucy would have an appointment for chemo, that she would make an extra effort to help her out by cooking for her, cleaning for her, buying her flowers, getting her little gifts, and calling to make sure everything was okay. But Jamie and Brad were front row witnesses as they just watched as Lucy's health appeared to decline. Lucy apparently was constantly vomiting and had lost a lot of weight. Her hair also began apparently falling out from chemo, so she had shaved the rest of it off. Around this time, Lucy was often seen using a walking stick to aid her walking because of the chronic fatigue, and she cried most days due to her condition. But like mentioned, she still continued to do the things she wanted to do. There was one night in particular when Brad was away and Lucy told Jamie, "Look, I really just want to drink. I don't have that long left anyway. Let's go to the pub." And Jamie was like, "You know what? Yeah, let's go." And they went out and enjoyed a night out. Jamie was just happy to be able to bring that light that Lucy still had out of her. But this unfortunately didn't last that long because by the end of July, Lucy was in very bad condition. Lucy would go many days where she did not eat at all. She would often be very nauseous and gag, leaning over a bucket or the toilet, and she began losing a lot of weight. And by time August rolled around, Jamie realized that Brad and Lucy might just need their own space, and so she decided to move out. Not long went by when Jamie went to go pick up her stuff, and she was greeted by Lucy, moving with a walking stick, looking so much thinner, and having her hair completely shaved off. And soon enough, Lucy began telling the others that her doctor had given her only 6 months more left to live. Brad did everything he could to help Lucy, and he doted on her compassionately. By that point in Lucy's treatment, she was so unwell, Brad had to help her sit up in bed. He was getting her food and assisted her to the bathroom. He set up a biomat in bed for her. He set up a nebulizer, which is a device that turns liquid medicine into an inhalable mist, and he even made sure to get her medication for her. Brad had to take care of Lucy full time, but he did not let this bother him because he loved her and he just wanted to make sure she knew this all the time. It came to a point Lucy had even given Brad a doctor's note to submit to his work so that he would be able to take carer's leave. Taking care of Lucy pretty much became like a full-time job for him. He was unable to work as a soldier with constant training and responsibilities while taking care of Lucy at the same time. And he ended up giving up on his job to make sure that she was being cared for. However, the problem with this was that Lucy's medical needs were expensive, and with his army paycheck, it soon became clear that he wouldn't be able to support Lucy on his own. Soon enough, the two of them had exhausted all of their personal savings, and they were beginning to take on more and more debt. Lucy still was too sick to keep a job, so Brad looked elsewhere for help, and Brad began going to their community. And it was on August 14th, 2018, when Brad had started a GoFundMe campaign to help pay for Lucy's treatment. The campaign told Lucy's story and included multiple pictures depicting Lucy's hair loss, her extreme fatigue, lying on the floor, her surgical bandages, and the campaign described how she started her business but soon had her life flipped upside down with a cancer diagnosis. Brad described Lucy suffering from organ failure, having to receive emergency surgery, and no longer being able to have children. From the page, you could tell that Brad was absolutely devastated by Lucy's fate, and the couple's true desperation was expressed when they mentioned how they were interested in moving away from generic Western medicine and that they needed to try alternative treatments in the hope of prolonging Lucy's life, at the very least provide a more comfortable situation for the remaining time we have together. Brad seemed to know that Lucy's cancer couldn't be cured, but he still wanted to give her everything that was possible in however much time she had left. That's when he mentioned that they were seeking to travel overseas for a treatment from somebody named Dr. Herzog, who was a doctor who specialized in adding hypothermia to traditional cancer treatments. Brad estimated that each session with Dr. Herzog would cost $40,000, and so the GoFundMe campaign's goal had been listed as $100,000. The campaign ended with a link to Lucy's blog, while Brad gave one final call to action saying, quote, I urge you to follow her story and help spread awareness of ovarian cancer and potentially decrease the amount of women who are diagnosed too late. The community rallied behind the couple and they began looking for more ways to help. And it was less than 2 weeks later, on August 25th, 2018, when a local newspaper covered Lucy's story and provided the link to her GoFundMe page and her blog. In a short amount of time, the GoFundMe page had reached close to $55,000, and Brad was able to use some of the money to pay off one of the loans that he had gotten for Lucy. They soon posted an update to the GoFundMe campaign saying, quote, "This week has been a complete bewilderment and incredibly eye-opening for us. The lengths that people have gone to in order to help us or to show their support for us has gone well beyond expectations. A few days ago, there were many things that were out of our reach. However, thanks to the generosity of everyone, we now have the ability to begin looking into purchasing items like a medical grade biomat and an air purifying machine. Alternative treatments within Australia, such as vitamin infusions, magnesium therapy, emmet therapy, and salt therapy. All of these things have the ability to assist Lucy with her overall health and happiness. Thank you, everyone. Love, Lou and Brad." So Brad got all of these things set up for Lucy, but it was with the GoFundMe he was able to, like I mentioned how he set up the biomat, it was with the GoFundMe he was able to purchase these things and more items. And it wasn't just this. There was an organization called the Townsville Baseball Association, and they held a fundraiser every Mother's Day to donate in honor of someone who had passed away from ovarian cancer. After hearing about Lucy's story, the association had decided that she would be deserving of their help. And it wasn't too long after, in September, when they gave her $348.50 of money that they were able to fundraise that past Mother's Day. On September 1st, 2018, another fundraiser was held for Lucy. From 6 a.m. until 6 p.m., a place called the Old Mace Barbershop offered $20 haircuts and vowed to donate the proceeds to Lucy. The barber, Keith Jackson, had heard about Lucy on Facebook and decided to hold the fundraiser to help, titled Cuts for Cancer. Lucy even offered to help Keith when she found out about the fundraiser, and she did this by assisting with sharing the flyers, and she even attended the event in person. This fundraiser was a success because Keith was able to raise $500 for Lucy. Likewise, in early September, the army that Brad was a part of, called the Clarence Diving Team 4, or AUSCDT4, also wanted to show support for Lucy. They held 2 separate raffles with proceeds from the tickets going to Lucy's care, and they also shared her GoFundMe page on their Facebook to encourage more donations. More of this continued because just a few weeks later, on September 22nd, 2018, a local gym offered to help out as well. They hosted a Get Fit for Lou boot camp day, where just for $10 a person, a fitness boot camp day was held. It was at this event they also sold protein pancakes for $5, and all of the money that they raised was donated to Lucy's treatment. Overall, Lucy had a lot of support. Brad's co-workers at the Australian Defence Force were also extremely supportive. Anyone that Brad cared for was also cared about by them, and because of this, they ended up organizing a large fundraiser and a bake sale in order to raise money for Lucy. They just hated seeing their coworkers struggle, and they wanted to assist in any way that they could. But it didn't take long for people to start noticing some inconsistencies with Lucy's story that would soon get called out. Around the time when all of these fundraising efforts were happening, accusations were beginning to be made against Lucy as well. And soon enough, Lucy began to notice some of these accusations. One day in October, someone had DM'd Lucy on Instagram, and in this DM, they claimed that she was lying about having cancer. The messenger explained that they had tried to send flowers to the hospital that Lucy was supposedly getting her treatments at. But when they tried doing this, they were told that there was no record of Lucy at this hospital. Lucy told Jamie about this accusation. She expressed her frustration, claiming that she had told the hospital not to give out any personal information about her, and that she couldn't believe that someone would think that this made her a liar. Which is fair enough. In the US, there's the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA. And Australia has a HIPAA law similar to the United States that offered even broader protections of privacy. It was unlikely for a hospital to give out anyone's personal information, so it made sense for Lucy to be frustrated about this accusation based on this reasoning. And Jamie and Brad still had her back and wholeheartedly supported Lucy. They knew that this was a tough time for her and they wanted to be able to take care of her. Jamie even showed her support for Lucy online, commenting on posts of people and calling them out who were making accusations about Lucy. And not too long had gone by when Brad even began catching some of the heat too. People thought that Brad was helping Lucy as a team in an attempt to con them out of money. And it wasn't too long after when Brad began to receive death threats. Despite the accusations, Brad did continue to support Lucy and stay by her side. However, it also wasn't too long when Brad realized that everything wasn't what it seemed. One day, Brad was called into his manager's office at work. And when he got in, there was a detective and a medical examiner there to talk to him about the allegations against Lucy. And it was only a few days after this meeting when a newspaper posted an article with a headline stating that a 27-year-old woman was faking cancer and had been arrested. Jamie immediately knew that this story was about Lucy, and she was appalled. She couldn't believe that a newspaper would even be allowed to print what she originally thought of as lies. But this too didn't last for that long, because soon enough, Jamie received a call from her grandmother, and her grandmother told her about the time she had met Lucy. But it wasn't a nice meeting where they got introduced to each other and engaged in some good conversation. But throughout the meeting, Lucy had complained about Jamie the entire time she was there. Lucy had told the grandmother about how Jamie wouldn't do chores, that she needed to move out, and that Jamie bothered both her and Brad. And it was after finding this out when things finally started to click for Jamie. She realized that if Lucy was someone that she was close with, could lie about her being her close friend, that she could also lie about having cancer too. Soon, Jamie had cut her contact with Lucy after one final text message where she told Lucy, quote, "You're a piece of crap. I never want to speak to you again." She seemed to finally be able to see through the facade and realize that everything she had helped Lucy through, all the crying, all the fatigue, all of the vomiting, had all just been an act. Jamie was really hurt by this and expressed herself to a newspaper stating, quote, "I felt like a fool. I'd been played and I feel betrayed. But the real victims were all the women out there battling ovarian cancer. It's one of the deadliest cancers of all, and Lucy Wieland made a mockery of their pain." Between August and October, the police had been receiving calls about Lucy. The Crime Stoppers phone line was full of reports that Lucy had been lying about cancer and conning people out of their money. These callers explained that Lucy had claimed to receive chemotherapy at Townsville Hospital, but that they knew this wasn't true. These callers also expressed outrage over the Gofundme page. Police took these claims seriously and began an investigation. They looked into the different pieces of the story, and sure enough, they found no evidence that Lucy had ovarian cancer. They found no evidence that Lucy was receiving chemotherapy. They found no evidence that Lucy had gone to Townsville Hospital, and what the police did instead find was evidence of 5 months worth of fraud complaints that added up to $72,823 that had been taken under false pretenses. Police looked over what Lucy and Brad had posted online. They dug through all of the blog posts, fundraising information, and social media, and in doing this, they discovered some larger issues with the story. 1. The couple claimed to be having trouble paying for treatment and wanted to explore alternative medicines that could possibly cost even more money. However, police soon realized that cancer patients at Townsville Hospital actually received treatment free of charge. Furthermore, The alternative treatment methods that the couple wanted to get from Dr. Herzog in Germany were also available at Townsville Hospital. So it would have made no sense that she A, needed money, and B, needed to go to Germany to get alternative treatments. With this evidence, police were able to obtain a search warrant for Lucy's house, which was executed on October 17th, 2018. And they most certainly found some interesting things during the search. One piece of evidence that they gathered was a letter from a person named Dr. Suresh Varma. This letter was dated August 2nd, 2018, and it stated that Lucy had stage 4 ovarian cancer. However, as they further investigated this case, the police were able to prove that this letter had been forged and that Lucy, in fact, had never been a patient of Dr. Suresh Varma. Not only this, but another piece of evidence that they found was a bottle of medication that was labeled letrozole and had the prescriber listed as Dr. Ron Chang. Letrozole is a medication prescribed to stop the spread of breast cancer. However, investigations showed that Lucy was not a patient of Dr. Ron Chang. Furthermore, analysis of the medication showed that the medication in that bottle was not actually letrozole. The medication instead was proved to be something called methenamine, and this is an antibacterial drug used to treat urinary tract infections. It would have no effect on the treatment of cancer. An interesting and kind of funny side note to this police investigation was that in some sources they discovered Lucy had told people that she was suffering from stage 5 ovarian cancer. In most sources, it had been corrected or reported as stage 4, but people who had been told Lucy was suffering from stage 5 cancer were likely those who had been most suspicious of her lies. This is because there is no such thing as stage 5 ovarian cancer. Stage 0 is when there is no cancer. Stage 1 is when there is a small amount of cancer. Stage 2 and 3 are larger growth of cancer that also affects nearby lymph nodes or tissue. And stage 4 is when cancer has metastasized. Police were able to also determine that Lucy had not used most of the money given to her for what she had claimed. Brad had gotten a $5,000 loan to pay for chemotherapy, but Lucy had not undergone chemotherapy. Brad had also gotten a $12,000 loan to pay for Lucy's eggs to be harvested, but this surgery never happened. The money Lucy did spend appeared to be on medical equipment or bandages that were necessary to keep up the ruse and look convincing on social media. And I mean, ovarian cancer is an intense diagnosis to lie about. Ovaries are the part of the female reproductive system that holds eggs before they have been fertilized. Lucy had supposedly claimed to have stage 5 ovarian cancer, but we're just going to refer to this as stage 4. With stage 4, the survival rate for 5 years is only approximately 20%. That means 80% of people with stage 4 ovarian cancer will not live for 5 years after diagnosis. However, earlier stages of ovarian cancer do have higher survival rates, with the 5-year rate being 89% for stage 1, 71% for stage 2, and 41% for stage 3. The difference in survival rates for different stages of ovarian cancer is due in part to treatment options. Patients with stage 1 are able to recover fine after a total hysterectomy because the cancer had not spread to other areas of the pelvis. Though, as the cancer spreads and the stage increases, the ability to remove the entirety of cancerous cells decreases. Later stages of ovarian cancer may still be treated with a hysterectomy, but they also have to debulk and remove any tumors from the surrounding areas. Chemotherapy will also be necessary because it's unlikely that every single cancer cell was removed surgically. Lucy had chosen the most advanced type of ovarian cancer to lie about. If she truly had stage 4 ovarian cancer, she would have likely had a rather extensive surgery. Also, she would have needed to undergo multiple rounds of chemotherapy. And even with this treatment, there would still be an 80% chance that she would not have lived 5 additional years. Lucy faced many charges because of this huge lie she had created. In total, Lucy faced 4 charges of fraud, including the money she had obtained from Brad, the money from the Baseball Association, the money from Christopher Keith Jackson, and the money from the unknown donors on the Gofundme. She faced 1 charge of forgery for the fake doctor's note and 1 charge of uttering a forged document after giving the document to Brad so that he can get time off work to care for her. She also faced one charge of possession of restricted drugs for having the methamphetamine without a prescription. Soon enough, GoFundMe also shut Lucy's page down and refunded the money that had not been withdrawn yet. And for all of these charges, Lucy was facing a maximum sentencing of up to 5 years. Many people began to speak out against Lucy. Those who had fundraised for her were appalled by her actions. The Townsville Baseball Association even did an interview with a newspaper after Lucy's lies had become public knowledge. Their president, Dan White, explained that the whole club was shocked and devastated by her lies. He went on to say, quote, "It was the third fundraiser and we were trying to make sure the money went to a local in need. And it's a shame because it could have gone to someone that really needed help." The interview finished with one more quote from Dan. "We are relieved to see some justice for all involved and for those that do need funding and support." Brad soon moved out of the apartment he shared with Lucy and cut all ties with her. He no longer wanted anything to do with her. He had just loved her so deeply, put himself into debt, taken care of her, and even gotten so many other people to donate and care about Lucy, and reasonably felt betrayed by her lies. Jamie even later mentioned that Brad's not been in a relationship since Lucy. He finds it hard to trust people. Now, what's interesting though, and this brought up a lot of the drama in the case, is that although Lucy seemingly lied to Brad, she actually felt betrayed by him, and she implied that he was allegedly part of the scheme as well. Lucy called him out, saying, quote, "I've got scars and holes in me that I don't know how I got, memories of him taking me to appointments that never existed, a criminal charge for something he organized and I had zero access to, and the guy completely cut me off." So based off this, it made it seem as if Lucy wasn't the mastermind behind the whole idea, and that instead it was allegedly Brad who was running the idea and making sure it all stayed in place. She claimed that this GoFundMe was in his name, and because of this, he was the only one taking the money. And she couldn't believe that he would abandon her after all this. Lucy had eventually spoke out to her friends in the media saying, quote, "I'm not accusing him of anything, but what the F has happened, I thought I was dying, and I don't know what the hell has happened to me over the last 10 months. I have no answers for myself, let alone anyone else." So this is where it just gets complicated, because on one hand, she's the one who's charged for running this and scamming others, but on the other hand, she's saying that she had no idea what was even happening in those months when she seemingly was dealing with cancer. But surely enough, people who were close to her had their own thoughts on what truly went down. Jamie claimed how Lucy supposedly had told these lies in an attempt to trap Brad in the relationship. So apparently at some point, Lucy and Jamie were talking about a previous relationship, like mentioned, that Lucy was in. And Lucy had told Jamie about how abusive her ex-partner was and how she got out of that relationship. But considering the lies that they now found out about, Jamie even speculated that that also might not have been true and was also a part of Lucy's plan to trap Brad, saying, quote, "I reckoned even her claims about an abusive previous partner were lies. That and the fake cancer, it was all designed to trap Brad. And Lucy didn't do it for the money. It was about hanging on to Brad." So Jamie seemed to believe that this had nothing to do with money. She believed that Lucy genuinely came up with this plan to keep Brad in a relationship. And she must have just had to keep up with accepting the money because part of the scheme was the fact that her medications allegedly were expensive. So even if she didn't want to take people's money, I guess it would have looked strange if she openly talked about her struggles with affording medications and not accepting help for it, especially considering she ran a blog and was very active on social media about what she was dealing with allegedly having stage 4 ovarian cancer. And this could make sense because Lucy knew from the beginning that Brad had wanted a more casual relationship. So based on what Jamie was saying, it could make sense that Lucy had used this lie to try to convince Brad to stay with her and take care of her, especially because with cancer in a relationship, there's a good chance there's either gonna be someone who leaves you you because cancer ghosting is unfortunately a thing, or someone who now feels even more connected to you and wants to be there for you in sickness and in health. And based on what everyone has said about Brad, it would make sense that he believed it because he seems to be a stand-up guy who is loyal to everyone around him. Newspapers even continue to call Brad an amazing human when the scheme was revealed. The town and those close to him believed that he had fallen prey to a trap and he was just too kind to see through her lies. Now, I'm not sure if you've heard about the case of Belle Gibson. Belle Gibson was another Australian woman who had lied about having cancer and looked into alternative treatments to traditional Western medicine. Many people have speculated that Lucy could have been inspired to start her lie after reading about Belle. This had become a high-profile case and seemed to gain a lot of popularity. It happened in 2015, just a few years prior to this case. So it's possible that Lucy had gotten the idea to pull this all off from the other cases in the media. The investigation and the trial did take some time. It was about 2 years after being charged when the trial finally took place. And something else at this time was that it was also announced that Lucy was pregnant. This was surprising news for a lot of people, especially after telling so many people that she might be infertile when she was dealing allegedly with stage 4 cancer. And this was reasonably hard for those who had been close with her to hear the news. Brad and Jamie were actually shocked and supposedly felt sick after hearing this. It had been approximately 2 years since she had been with Brad, so he was not the father of her child. However, it's not clear to the public who the father actually was. On August 4th, 2020, Lucy pled guilty to all 7 counts she was charged with. And for this, she was sentenced to 2 years of imprisonment with possible parole after 6 months. And she was ordered to pay back $29,692.67 total to various people. This meant that the earliest release for Lucy would have been February 4th, 2021. Now, even though Lucy had pled guilty, she was actually unhappy with this sentence. And just 3 weeks later, on August 25th, 2020, she filed an appeal stating that the sentence was excessive. Lucy had claimed that the sentence was excessive because she was pregnant, had no criminal history, was young, had pled guilty, had mental health issues, and had paid full restitution. The thing is, fraud can have a maximum sentence of 5 years, and Lucy had only received 2 years. Also, Lucy hadn't faced additional time for the drug possession or the forgery charges. Her 2-year sentence was actually fairly light compared to what it could have been. And the judge had already taken her history and mental health into account when she had been sentenced originally. Part of her light sentence actually was influenced by her pregnancy as well. And based on this, her appeal was denied. In October 2020, after serving less than 3 months of her sentence, Lucy was allowed a short time out of imprisonment, allowing her some time to give birth to her son. And following this, she returned to imprisonment to finish her sentence. The Townsville Correctional Center had facilities that allowed Lucy to remain with her newborn baby while in prison. And the Correctional Center had ample ability to ensure that the baby was provided with proper care while the two lived there. Now, as social media and sharing your story on the internet has grown in popularity, so has the occurrences of faking illnesses. Online, it is easier to lie and pretend to be something you're not. With photo manipulation and editing, as well as the ability to post anonymously, it's becoming so much easier for people to spread false information. Terms like catfishing, clickbait, and fake news have been created to highlight these internet lies. More recently, one newer term has begun to be used: Munchausen by internet. Munchausen's is an outdated diagnosis for when someone fakes their symptoms and pretends to be suffering from an illness for attention, power, or other benefit. This is often associated with the term malingering, which is used to describe faking an illness to escape duty or employment, especially in association with military duties. The more accepted name for this diagnosis has become factitious disorder. This is an overarching diagnosis meant to describe anyone who is faking an illness purposefully or unconsciously. Because of the ability to get likes and shares on online posts, people with attention-seeking behavior often post every aspect of their life online. These people love the attention they can get, even if a like button might not seem much to someone else. Also, the idea of going viral would be amazing to someone wanting this online attention. In recent years, an easy way to go viral online has been to share your inspiring story of hardship. If others feel like they can really see what you are going through, they are more interested in following the story and showing their support of you. Combining the ideas of Munchausen's and online attention seeking results in this idea of Munchausen's by internet. It has become commonplace for people to pretend to have illnesses in order to share their story online for attention and money. People can go online and fake a cold, but some commonly faked illnesses online include things like Tourette's syndrome, more intense psychological conditions like dissociative identity disorder, or even things like terminal illnesses like cancer. The idea of faking these illnesses online is often also referred to by the names social media associated abnormal illness behavior, or SMAAIB, and digital factitious disorder, or DFD. People who had this attention-seeking behavior often post photos on social media showing medical equipment, injuries, hospital backgrounds, and treatments. It's very common for them to join and participate in online support groups for their condition. These people will often make themselves sound noble or brave. I mean, they make it seem as if they're going through something hard, but they try to remain optimistic and strong for everyone. They might detail stories of treatments or times that they experienced strong symptoms. They might even go through treatments or procedures they don't really need just for the photos and the facade. But this can also lead to conning others out of their money through fundraisers and donations. Now, mental health is definitely something that does need to be talked about. I always find these cases interesting because on one hand, it's clear that one can have mental health issues that would make them engage in faking an illness. Factitious disorder is obviously a thing. My thing is, where's the line drawn between faking an illness and harming others? Specifically, a very serious illness like this. Sure, lie about a cold, but by lying about cancer, so many people are hurt in the process. The loved ones are dealing with the trauma of knowing someone they love is going to be gone in a few months. And where the crime aspect comes into play is when you're taking money from others. $70,000 is a lot of money. Having someone take off work is affecting their life. Companies spending the day to raise money for you are missing out on what they need to make on a daily basis to keep their business running. And it's coming from people who just genuinely want to help. This makes it harder for those who actually need financial help for medical expenses. While yes, mental health should always be taken into consideration, accountability also needs to as well, because there's no saying how long this would have continued and how many more people would have been affected on the way had this lie not been revealed. Although Lucy acted horribly and did things that would not be forgivable, she has fortunately tried to move past her poor behavior. Since her release, she has appeared to stay relatively quiet in stark contrast to her previous life blogging. From what is available on social media, it seems that she has started another beauty business, and that does seem to be a true passion for her. And this business had its grand opening in October of 2022. Based upon current business reviews, it seems that she is giving quality service to her beauty clients. And she is also raising her son and seems to be turning over a new leaf. So I'm sure she has had time to reflect on what she has done and hopefully has gotten the help to work on any mental health issues she was dealing with so that she doesn't hurt anyone else again. But yes, that is it for today's video. What are your thoughts on this case? I came across this case after seeing a news article and I just had to cover it. I'm very intrigued to see and hear what you think, so please comment your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any other videos on medical cases, crime, and mysteries. Bye now.